Shabbat Shalom. I was recently in conversation with someone, and we were discussing the woes of the Jewish world, and we're talking about how to meet the religious and spiritual needs of everybody. He said, well, Rabbi, you first have to meet their other needs. You have to make sure their stomachs are full. And it's true that on one hand, it doesn't always work out that way. On one hand, there is a place from where it's our needs to open up our hearts, to turn to the sustainer of the universe and to pray for something. And when we're in need and when we're struggling, whatever way it is that we're struggling, that's when we look and we see that the shiny allures of our world and some of the aspects of the rat race don't always bring us everything that we need. And then we turn to find comfort and solace in other elements of life, spiritual, intellectual, cultural, justice work. And then on the other hand, we also know, and as Jews we know, that we have to feed our people if we want them to focus on religious and spiritual matters. Try to have a long synagogue event without any food. Good luck. You want people to come, you know what you have to do. And the Torah supports this. And one of the words in our parsha this morning that comes back often, again and again, is visavata, and you will be satiated. And you have to look at it in context to a nation of slaves who had struggled in Egypt for food and then taken to the desert for 40 years eating manna, the same heavenly food every day, promised a land flowing with milk and honey. That was important. And they'd seen the produce that the spies had brought back, the giant grapes that we see in so much of our imagery, Kiddush cups and so on. But Moses was telling them, as he does over and over again, if all goes well, you will be satiated. And our tradition has actually understood this as what's called a positive commandment. You have to satiate yourself. You have to eat well and take care of yourself on Shabbat and festivals and have big meals. And earlier in the week in Minyan, we were talking a little bit about these lines. And my father-in-law was there, and he says, well, Adir, when the Torah says that, you were saying that the people need to be satiated with the big grapes that they were bringing back, does that include wine? I said, yes, the Talmud says there's no happiness without wine. And it's not being completely literal, thank God, but it's saying that, yes, and in the context of a people who were suffering oppression and exile for thousands of years, was telling them, find that space to find that satiation. And we have so many customs and song about that plenty. And even more than food, the Torah wants people to begin to have that place of comfort in their lives, not to let their fellows go hungry. Abraham had the tent that's open to all visitors, and as we say in the Midrash, and in one of the great stories in the Torah, he rushes to bring food, to bring comfort, to wash the hands and the feet of his guests who turn out to be divine visitors, and doing all of that just as he's also engaged in that very challenging work of creating monotheism. Right? In the old country, as I remember reading Reb Zalman Schachter Shalomi once noting, if a poor person brought a chicken to a rabbi, and the rabbi looked at the chicken and knew it was no way this chicken was kosher, often they would say it's kosher because it's important for them to have that chicken. It's important to have that for Shabbos. Now, on the other hand, our parsha also says, and Moses tells the people, not on bread alone does man live, but on all that comes out of God's mouth does man live. God wants you to eat bread, to have it all, but also to realize that there's more. And the more part is also an important part of life. And that once you're across the boundaries of the Jordan, you will also have to find out how to live on that other kind of sustenance, because it won't be falling from heaven. And that's all that comes. What is all that comes out of God's mouth? Well, of course, it's the Torah and the commandments, the teachings, but it's also the words, the songs we sing, the prayers we say, all that brings purpose and meaning to us in our lives, the Spirit, Sabbath, Shabbat. Right? The Torah teaches that God created the world in 6 days. On the 7th day, Vayinafash, and God took a deep breath. And the Baal Shem Tov teaches, what is a deep breath? On that day, Shabbat, God looked at the world and saw it was lacking in life. So God took a deep breath and breathed in soul into the world. So one day, will you try and reconnect to that place of soul? And then the tradition continues that when you are finally there and you have that satiation, in words that are familiar to so many of us, kakatu ve'achalta ve'verachta, when you, as we say in the Birkat Hamazon, the blessing after meals, and you will be satiated, and then you will bless. Because the purpose of that satiation is to then bring blessing. Blessing is gratitude for everything we have, but then also to bless others. When we are blessed, we feel moved to bless others. And Moses was saying, life is going to be good. It will be hard, but it will also be good. And your challenge is going to be not to forget that not on bread alone does man live, and to eat and to then bless also. And this is the purpose that you were been blessed too. And Moses is saying, make sure to do what you can in that moment, even as the satiation and comfort may not last forever. And because the years that they were coming from, the years in the desert, well, that was a different model. 40 years in the desert, there was the opposite. They received heavenly food, but it didn't fill their tummies very much, as we read again and again in the Torah. And they kept, but it was a way for them to go past the slave mentality, as we're taught, of going back to Egypt, and to in Egypt, as they're always fearful where their next meal would come from and trying to bring more. And they had to learn how to live on that daily offering of manna. And Moses was saying, the next stage is not going to be like that. Milk and honey will come your way, but you must also remember what it's like not to have it. And you must remember there is more. Not on bread alone does man live. So, David and Ilana, part of getting married is building a house, as is mentioned. And part of building a home is enjoying all of the comfort of full meals. I think every tradition loves a good feast and a gathering of family and holidays and all those things that we all do. But also, I think all traditions remind us that creating a home is also about bringing values and purpose and meaning into our home, and letting our home be a fortress, then go out into the world to bring justice, to bring truth, to bring healing, to bring repair. And that's why we break a glass at the end of a wedding, to remind ourselves that part of creating a home, part of coming together, is to bring that healing into our world. And so may all of our homes be fortresses, be foundations, to be satiated, but also then to bring blessing to all others. Shabbat Shalom.